Hello everyone, and welcome to Hello Word. I am your host, Alex, and I am so excited to have you here today. If this is your first time tuning in, Hello Word is the place where we discuss English concepts, subjects, and words used in specific daily occasions. Our mission is to help you explore and understand a variety of words so you can feel confident using them in real conversations. In this episode, we are turning our attention to a very relevant theme, body and health. We will be taking a closer look at English words that describe various conditions, symptoms, and states of being related to health. These words range from simple, everyday terms to more technical vocabulary. Most of them are nouns because they name conditions and illnesses, while a few are adjectives that describe a person's state. We will focus on giving you clear definitions, everyday usage, and sample sentences, so you can understand how each word fits into daily conversation. We will explore each one in its own paragraph, so you can steadily build your understanding. I know that health can be a sensitive topic, but it is a crucial part of life, and being able to talk about it in English can be incredibly useful for school, work, traveling, or simply chatting with friends. Before we jump in, I want you to remember that learning new words in a new language is a process. Whether you are already familiar with some of these terms or they are brand new to you, consistency and practice will help you make them a natural part of your vocabulary. So feel free to take notes, repeat the words out loud, or even pause the podcast to jot down anything important. By the end of this episode, you will have a more solid grasp of how to describe and discuss a variety of health-related situations in English. With all of that said, let us begin our deep dive into these words, starting with the simpler ones and gradually moving on to more specialized terms. First, let us talk about the word ill. This word is an adjective that means not in good health or feeling unwell. When you are ill, it means you are sick or suffering from some ailment. People often say they are ill when they feel bad or need to see a doctor. An example in daily conversation might be, "I feel ill today, so I am going to stay home and rest." In that context, the word ill describes your current state of health. Another example is, "My mother has been ill for the past few days, but she is starting to recover." Notice that we use it when we want to emphasize someone's poor health. You can also hear phrases such as ill at ease, but that has a different meaning related to feeling uncomfortable in a situation, not necessarily physically sick. For our purpose, remember ill as an adjective that describes being unwell. Next, we have the word cold, which is most often a noun referring to the common viral infection that affects the nose, throat, and sinuses. When someone says, "I have a cold," they mean they are experiencing symptoms such as a runny nose, sore throat, and slight fever. The common cold is something we all experience at some point. A simple example is, "He caught a cold after being out in the rain." Another example is, "She is sneezing a lot today, so she might have a cold." In everyday conversation, cold as a noun describes that mild viral infection that usually is not too serious, but can make you feel miserable for a few days. Now let us talk about cough. This word can function both as a noun and a verb in English. When it is a noun, it refers to the act or sound of coughing, such as "I have a bad cough." When it is a verb, it refers to the action someone does, such as "I cough when my throat is irritated." In everyday life, we hear phrases like "he cannot stop coughing," meaning the action is ongoing. If you are describing the symptom, you might say, "I have a persistent cough that started last night." It is helpful to know both uses because they are common in conversations about health. Up next is the word healthy, which is an adjective. Healthy describes a state of being in good physical or mental condition, or free from illness. If you eat balanced meals, exercise, and get plenty of rest, people might say you are healthy. An example sentence is, "I try to live a healthy lifestyle by running every morning and eating lots of fruits and vegetables." Another way to use this adjective is in phrases like "she looks so healthy after her holiday," indicating that she appears well-rested and free from stress or sickness. Healthy is all about wellness and is the opposite of being ill. Moving on, let us discuss the word influenza, often shortened to flu. Influenza is a noun referring to a contagious viral infection that is typically more severe than the common cold. It can cause fever, body aches, chills, and fatigue. People often say, "I have the flu," if they have tested positive for the influenza virus or are experiencing intense flu-like symptoms. A common sentence is, "Influenza can knock you out for a week if you do not take care of yourself." Another sentence could be, "He got a flu shot to protect himself during winter." Remember that influenza is generally more serious than a simple cold, so it is wise to rest and follow a doctor's advice if you think you have it. Next, let us look at sneezing, which is a noun in this context. It refers to the act of expelling air from your nose and mouth involuntarily, often caused by irritation in the nose. It comes from the verb to sneeze. You might hear someone say, "My sneezing is out of control today because of my allergies." Another example is, "That sudden change in temperature makes me start sneezing." Sneezing is a common symptom in many illnesses, from the cold to hay fever, which we will discuss later. In everyday life, when someone sneezes, it is polite to say "bless you" in English-speaking cultures. The next word is fever, a noun that refers to a higher than normal body temperature. When you have a fever, it typically means your body is fighting off an infection or illness. A typical sentence might be, "He has a fever and needs to rest in bed." If you want to describe a very high temperature, you could say something like, "His fever went so high that we had to take him to the hospital." When you have a fever, you often feel hot, experience chills, and might sweat more than usual. It is a common sign that your body's immune system is working to fight an invader, such as a virus or bacteria. Hay fever is our next word, and this one is a noun. It does not actually mean you have a fever from hay. Instead, hay fever refers to an allergic reaction to pollen or other substances in the environment. Another term for it is seasonal allergies. A common sentence is, "During springtime, my hay fever becomes really severe." Another example is, "She always keeps tissues in her bag because of her hay fever." People with hay fever often experience sneezing, runny nose, and itchy eyes, especially during seasons when the pollen count is high. Next, let us talk about high or low blood pressure, which is a noun phrase used to describe the force of the blood moving through your arteries. High blood pressure is sometimes referred to as hypertension, and low blood pressure is sometimes referred to as hypotension. If someone has high blood pressure, you could say, "My father has high blood pressure, so he watches his salt intake." For low blood pressure, you might hear, "She feels dizzy sometimes due to low blood pressure." Both conditions can be serious, so people usually follow their doctor's advice to maintain healthy levels. Now we move to inflammation, a noun that describes the body's response to injury or infection. When a part of your body is inflamed, it can become red, swollen, warm, or painful. For instance, if you have a sore throat, you could say, "The doctor said there is inflammation in my throat." Another example is, "Ice can help reduce inflammation in your sprained ankle." Inflammation is your body's way of protecting itself, but too much inflammation can be harmful, so it is often a balancing act. Let us look at shingles next. Shingles is a noun that refers to a viral infection caused by the same virus that causes chickenpox. It typically appears as a painful rash on one side of the body. An example in everyday speech is, "My aunt had shingles last year, and it was very painful." Another sentence could be, "People who had chickenpox when they were younger can develop shingles later in life." Doctors often advise getting a vaccine to prevent shingles, especially if you are older. Moving on, we have deficiency symptom, which is a noun phrase. It refers to any sign or manifestation that someone is lacking a certain nutrient or mineral. For example, if you're not getting enough iron, you might experience fatigue or dizziness. You could say, one deficiency symptom of low vitamin D is bone pain. Another example, hair loss can be a deficiency symptom that indicates a lack of protein or important vitamins. These symptoms help doctors figure out what your body may be missing, so you can correct it through diet or supplements. Next is blood poisoning, which is a noun phrase referring to the presence of bacteria or toxins in the bloodstream, often leading to serious infections. Another common medical term for it is sepsis. A typical way you might hear it discussed is, if a cut gets infected and the infection spreads, it can lead to blood poisoning. Another example, he needed immediate treatment for blood poisoning after he was bitten by a stray animal. This condition is critical and requires urgent medical care. Psoriasis is the next word, and it is a noun for a chronic skin condition characterized by red, itchy, scaly patches. If you know someone with psoriasis, you might say, her psoriasis often flares up during winter. Another example is, there are medications that help control the symptoms of psoriasis. It is not contagious, but it can be quite uncomfortable. People with psoriasis often learn to manage it with a combination of treatments and a healthy lifestyle. Childhood illness is a noun phrase referring to any disease that generally occurs among children. Some illnesses are far more common in children than adults. You might hear, chickenpox is considered a childhood illness, though adults can still get it. Another example could be, many childhood illnesses are preventable by vaccines. Doctors often discuss childhood illnesses when they talk about children's health, explaining how to best protect kids from infections. Rubella is our next noun. It is a viral infection that causes a rash and mild fever. It is sometimes called German measles. A typical sentence might be, children are usually vaccinated against rubella at an early age. Another example is, rubella can cause serious complications for pregnant women, so it is important to be immunized. This illness has become far less common in many parts of the world thanks to widespread vaccination programs. Next, we have scarlet fever, which is a noun referring to a disease that typically arises from an infection with the group A Streptococcus bacteria. It often starts with a sore throat and fever, and then a red rash can appear on the skin. You could say, the child had a high fever and a red rash, so the doctor diagnosed scarlet fever. Another example, antibiotics are used to treat scarlet fever and prevent complications. Years ago, scarlet fever was more dangerous, but medical advancements have made it much less severe nowadays. Let us discuss chickenpox, another noun. Chickenpox is caused by the varicella-zoster virus and typically appears as itchy blisters all over the body. It is commonly known as a childhood illness, though adults can catch it too. You can hear a sentence like, I had chickenpox when I was 7, and it was very itchy. Another example is, chickenpox is very contagious, so children often catch it at school. A vaccine exists to reduce the chances of getting it, or to lessen its severity if you do contract it. Mumps is our next noun. It is a viral infection that affects the salivary glands, leading to swelling in the cheek area. A common sentence might be, he had mumps as a child, and his face became very swollen. Another is, mumps can be prevented through vaccination. Although it is rarer nowadays in places with good vaccination coverage, mumps can still occur, so people are mindful about the potential risks and complications, especially for adults. Whooping cough is a noun that describes a contagious bacterial infection of the respiratory system, also known as pertussis. It is characterized by intense coughing fits and a distinctive whooping sound at the end of each cough. In daily conversation, you could say, infants are at high risk from whooping cough and need to be vaccinated. Another example is, It is called whooping cough because of the whoop noise people make when they breathe in after a coughing fit. Vaccinations are crucial to prevent the spread of this illness. Measles is the next noun. Measles is a highly contagious viral infection that usually starts with fever, cough, runny nose, and inflamed eyes, followed by a rash. You might hear, "She got measles before she was vaccinated." Another example is, measles can be serious for young children and can cause complications. Widespread vaccination has greatly reduced the number of measles cases around the world, but outbreaks can still occur if vaccination rates drop. Next, we have polio, a noun referring to a viral disease that can affect the nervous system and potentially lead to partial or full paralysis. A sample sentence is, polio was once widespread, causing many children to become paralyzed. Another example is, thanks to global vaccination efforts, polio has nearly been eradicated. This disease shows how important vaccines are in preventing dangerous illnesses and protecting entire communities. Tetanus is the next noun on our list. Tetanus is caused by bacteria that typically enter the body through wounds or cuts. It is sometimes called lockjaw because it can cause severe muscle spasms, often starting in the jaw. You might hear, "You should get a tetanus shot if you step on a rusty nail." Another example, tetanus can be fatal if not treated, so vaccination is recommended for everyone. Like many conditions on this list, it has become much less common in regions with regular vaccination programs. Let us move to tuberculosis, often shortened to TB, a noun referring to a bacterial infection that most commonly affects the lungs. An example sentence is, in many countries, children receive a vaccine to protect them from tuberculosis. Another example is, TB can be spread through the air when an infected person coughs or sneezes. Treatment for TB often involves taking multiple antibiotics for a considerable length of time. It was once highly prevalent, but improved healthcare has helped reduce its impact in many areas. Next, we look at rickets, which is a noun that describes a condition resulting from a lack of vitamin D, calcium, or phosphate. It leads to softening or weakening of the bones, especially in children. You might hear, rickets can cause bowed legs in children if not treated. Another sentence is, ensuring children get enough vitamin D helps prevent rickets. Access to a balanced diet and exposure to sunlight are typically helpful in warding off this condition. Meningitis is our next noun. It refers to inflammation of the protective membranes covering the brain and spinal cord, called the meninges. A common statement about meningitis might be, meningitis can be caused by viruses, bacteria, or other microorganisms. Another example is, if you suspect meningitis, seek medical help immediately because it can progress very quickly. Vaccines for certain types of meningitis exist and are strongly recommended in many places, especially for students living in close quarters. Now we have diphtheria, another noun. Diphtheria is a serious bacterial infection that affects the mucous membranes of the throat and nose. A typical conversation might include, diphtheria was once a leading cause of childhood death, but vaccinations have made it rare in many countries. Another sentence could be, one symptom of diphtheria is a thick covering in the back of the throat that makes it hard to breathe or swallow. Again, vaccination is key in controlling the spread of this condition. Finally, let us talk about rabies. Rabies is a noun referring to a viral disease that affects the central nervous system of mammals, including humans. It is typically transmitted by animal bites, especially from dogs, bats, or other infected animals. You can hear, if you are bitten by a stray animal, you should consult a doctor in case of rabies. Another example is, people traveling to remote areas sometimes get a rabies vaccine as a precaution. Rabies is almost always fatal if it is not treated before symptoms appear, so timely medical attention is critical. Those are all the words we are going to cover today. As you can see, these words are mostly nouns because they refer to illnesses, conditions, or symptoms. We also have a couple of adjectives in there to describe states of health, such as ill and healthy. These terms can be very useful if you find yourself having to describe symptoms to a doctor, talk about your own health, or even discuss global health topics with English speakers. Remember that building your vocabulary in this area will help you handle a variety of real-life situations. Whether you are traveling, living abroad, or simply learning English to communicate better in healthcare settings, these words will empower you to share information clearly and understand what others are saying about health and body-related issues. I hope you enjoyed this detailed exploration of our health-themed vocabulary. Practice saying these words, try creating your own sentences, and see if you can use them when talking about health scenarios with friends or family. If you ever need to revisit these definitions, you can always replay this episode and refresh your memory. The more you familiarize yourself with these terms, the easier it will be to recall them when you really need them. Before you go, I have a little favor to ask. If you liked what you heard today, please make sure to subscribe to this podcast. By subscribing, you will get the latest episodes delivered right to you, and you will never miss a chance to learn something new. Also, consider leaving a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your support helps more people discover Hello Word and join us in exploring the wonderful world of English vocabulary. Reviews, subscriptions, and word of mouth all go a long way toward building our learning community, so I really appreciate anything you can do to help spread the word. Thank you so much for listening and for taking the time to invest in your English learning journey. Always remember that consistency and practice are your best friends when it comes to building language skills. Every word you learn is a step forward in your ability to communicate and connect with people around the world. Keep working on your vocabulary, and do not forget to drink plenty of water, get some rest, and stay healthy. This has been Alex, your host for Hello Word. I wish you a fantastic day full of new discoveries and progress. I look forward to meeting you again in our next episode. Until then, keep learning, stay curious, and take care.